Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the impromptu artificial future podcast that we do every Wednesday.
Sorry, I got to come out there. I forgot I shot with Mark, and the camera is way too tall right now for you.
It is?
I'm coming out there to fix that right now.
We're going to get a better visual on me, so bear with us here. Today we're going to be covering a number of cool topics. You know, what I find is in the artificial intelligence space, there's never an absence of new information every week, and it's getting to the point where we have more than we can handle, so we have to prioritize. So we hope we're feeding and talking about the right things, the things that interest you. And yeah, there we go. It's a little bit better. Now, the guy behind me there, I'm going to move out of the way a little bit here, is actually a student. And what I asked for here was not Midjourney, DALL-E. There you go. And one of the topics is going to be how the universities and the learning institutions are handling the integration of artificial intelligence, and oftentimes clandestine. In other words, it's not approved. They would still really prefer students to do their own thinking rather than apply the augmentation that's available from artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT-4 writing essays. So what I asked for here was, give me a classroom and someone in the classroom using ChatGPT-4 to write an essay. I'm going to move out of the way a little bit more here. Let's go this way. There we go.
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Yeah. So what you're going to see here is someone that has built a wall of books around him and is clearly using a screen to do his homework. Now, this is becoming a problem, apparently. We knew it would because if you think about it, learning institutions are about exercising the mind, right? Well, with all of this augmentation that has been rapidly advancing as technology continues to improve, there's certain types of learning that is no longer being processed the same way that it used to. You know, I'm an old guy. We didn't have calculators. At best, we had slide rules, and typically those were in labs. But we were taught longhand arithmetic, even the decryption of square roots, for example, and fractions, of course. And you know, then you got into the more complicated forms of math, from calculus, trigonometry. You know, it was. And of course, algebra. The things changed as we got calculators. It was much easier to just simply, you know, push some buttons and it would give you the result. Well, AI has gone a step further. It can you really no longer need to learn the procedure to find the square root of something, because what's the point? We're always going to have something near us, an appliance near us, that can decrypt this sort of thing for you. So the most recent issues that are beginning to surface now, with the rise of the chatbots, ChatGPT, for example, colleges are beginning to restructure some courses, and they're taking preventive measures because of the core belief still being the purpose of going to school is to exercise your mind, not your fingers pushing buttons or keyboards typing things into ChatGPT. So here was an example. While grading, and this is an article I'm going to read you from, while grading essays for his world religions course last month, Anthony Aumann, a professor of philosophy at Northern Michigan University, read what he said was easily the best paper in the class. It explored the morality of burqa bans with clean paragraphs, fitting examples, and rigorous arguments. Well, a red flag instantly went up, and Mr. Aumann confronted his student, the professor, over whether he had written the essay himself. Well, the guy was honest, and he confessed, and he said, yeah, I was using ChatGPT, and which explains, of course, concepts and generates ideas in simple sentences, and in this case, had written the paper. Now, remember the previous assessment by the professor? It was the best paper in the class. All right. So, alarmed by this discovery, the professor, Mr. Almond, decided to transform essay writing for his courses this semester. What he plans to do is require students to write the first draft in the classroom using browsers that monitor and restrict computer activity. In later drafts, students have to explain each revision. The professor also may forego essays in subsequent semesters and also plans to weave ChatGPT into lessons by asking students to evaluate the chatbot's responses. So it looks like we're shifting. He also says what's happening in class is no longer going to be, here's some questions, let's talk about it between us human beings, but instead it's like, what does this alien robot now think about these topics? Apparently, across the country, a lot of professors like Mr. Almonds are starting to overhaul classrooms in response to ChatGPT, prompting a potentially huge shift in their courses and shifts in how learning is done. Some professors are redesigning their courses entirely, making changes that include more oral exams, group work, and handwritten assessments in lieu of typed ones. Now, it's going to be fairly easy, I think, to weed out the ones that aren't learning, but relying on these augmentation tools like ChatGPT, because in an oral discussion, I think it'll be fairly easy to recognize the variation in the oral presentation versus the written presentation. You know, this is reminiscent to me of what we used to try to get away with unsuccessfully most of the time. We would be asked in high school to read a book. All right, well, you really didn't want to read the book, right? I wasn't a great student in school. So a few times I tried going to the library. We had a school library, and you could find the book and then go to the back page and get a abbreviated synopsis of what the book's about. Well, as much as I tried to sell that and pass that off as my work, it was usually discovered by some astute teachers that would call me over and say, Gruber, this ain't going to fly. Either you're going to do a book report or you're failing. So this whole AI augmentation reminds me of that. So what they go on to say here is that the moves at the learning institutions are part of a real-time grappling with new technological waves known as generative artificial intelligence. And with, of course, ChatGPT, which is OpenAI's version, at the forefront of the shift. The chatbot, they say, generates eerily articulate and nuanced text in responses to short prompts, with people using it to write love letters, poetry, fan fiction, and their schoolwork. Now, there's an interesting notion. You know, you've got a crush, and you don't quite know how to, write something to this crush. ChatGPT-4 is probably going to do a very good job with something like this.
Yeah, it could come up with some pretty solid pickup lines. I think.
Yeah.
Get some the kids call that Riz these days. Yeah, I've seen a couple of streamers actually use it for that to just do kind of like as a joking thing, but
right.
It's got all the best pickup lines ever told in there.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the female gender is pretty confusing to most guys, even, as you progress and you age. And it's quite possible that AI might have a better handle on what the female gender is looking for. All right, so what they're saying is that this has now upended some middle and high schools with teachers and administrators trying to discern whether students are using the chatbot to do their schoolwork. Some public school systems, including New York City and Seattle, have since banned the tool on school Wi-Fi networks and devices to prevent cheating. Those students can easily find workarounds to access ChatGPT-4. I suppose their cell phones are a good example of that. In higher education, colleges, universities, they've been reluctant to ban these AI tools because administrators doubt that the move would be effective, first of all, and that they don't want to infringe on academic freedom. That means, of course, that the way people teach is going to be changing. Looks like we're bringing something up on the screen here.
Yeah, working on trying to get Aaron and my camera to work, but
okay.
It's not affecting their stream, so you can keep going.
All right. So they go on to say that they try to institute general policies that back up the faculty members' authority to run a class, instead of targeting specific methods of cheating, said Joe Glover, who's a provost at the University of Florida. And this isn't going to be the last innovation we have to deal with. Amen to that, right? That's especially true, they say, as generative AI is in its early days. OpenAI is expected to soon release another tool, GPT-4, which is already here actually, which is better at generating text than previous versions. An OpenAI spokeswoman said that the lab recognized its programs could be used to mislead people and was developing technology to help people identify text generated by GPT-4 or GPT period. We talked in the last podcast about software that was AI that actually was able to determine whether it was a human that wrote it or whether it was its own variation of AI that generated the work, the essay, or whatever. So I'm sure that those types of tools will be implemented and put into practice. Now, they say that at many universities, ChatGPT has now vaulted to the top of the agenda, and administrators are establishing task forces and hosting university-wide discussions to respond to the tool. So they're trying to learn how to adapt.
So if you're curious, on a side note, I asked ChatGPT, how would you recommend I ask Taylor Swift out on a date?
All right, what did it say?
Well, it said, if you're interested in asking Taylor Swift out on a date, it's important to approach the situation with respect, consideration, and an understanding that of her celebrity status. So it factored in quite a few things. Right. Yeah. So 1, respect her privacy. 2, be genuine and respectful. 3, be realistic. 4, use appropriate channels. And 5, keep it casual. So it gave me some tips and then a couple recommendations underneath those tips too.
Now here's a very important fact or something to throw in there. Make sure that her football playing husband isn't around, or boyfriend in this case, right?
Well, I'm actually using ChatGPT 3.5. So as of right now, it doesn't understand that she's dating Travis Kelce.
Okay.
So, but maybe I should log into my 4.0 one and then ask her for a more updated response.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. I think you'd want to stay out of that guy's way if you're hitting on his woman. All right. So Elon Musk is back in the news, and he apparently is suing OpenAI, the very company that he helped to create. And the issue is, for him at least, the basis of the lawsuit is, here is a organization that was slated to be a open, which is what the name implies, and nonprofit, and instead it is moved to generating revenue. Jesse, do we have the that video that we can pop up of Elon gives an analogy, by the way, of the basis of this lawsuit? Once we bring that up, I think we'll have something more to talk about there. But I've got an article here. They say Elon Musk isn't wrong about OpenAI. It started as one thing and then became another, though that isn't necessarily a bad thing. The tech giant launched a lawsuit late Thursday last week against OpenAI and co-founders Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, claiming that by launching a for-profit arm, OpenAI breached the terms of its original foundation agreement, which promised that OpenAI would work to ensure that AI, and even general AI, would be developed for the betterment of humanity. Now, Musk, Altman, and Brockman launched OpenAI back in 2015 with that agreement in place. But after pouring millions, according to Elon, 44 million was the number that was counted, into the nonprofit and multiple disagreements about the direction of the company, Musk and OpenAI eventually parted ways. In the meantime, OpenAI launched a profit arm, which could do a better job at funding its research than collecting donations. And it partnered up with Microsoft, which handed OpenAI a huge multi-billion-dollar investment and gained exclusive access to some of the company's work and product. That given, Microsoft has a leg up in the AI race and helped it launch Copilot, formerly the Bing Chat. In the lawsuit now, which seeks unspecified damages and OpenAI's return to its nonprofit open source roots, Musk claims that OpenAI has been transformed into a closed source de facto subsidiary of the largest technology company in the world, Microsoft. It points out that the development of GPT-4, which Elon claims can outreason humans, and how its trajectory has not matched that of GPT 3.5. Unlike the other open AI GPT 3.5, GPT-4 is not yet open sourced, and Musk claims, though, that Microsoft has access to that internal design. Do we have that video?
So I don't. You're talking about the link.
Yeah.
This one.
Yep. And if we can play the video there, where Elon says, "Look, it does seem weird."
Weird that something can be a non-profit, open source, and look, it does seem weird that something can be a non-profit, open source, and somehow transform itself into a for-profit closed source. I mean, this would be like let's say you funded an organization to save the Amazon rainforest, and instead they became a lumber company and chopped down the forest and sold it for money. And you'd be therefore like, well, wait a second, that's the exact opposite of what I gave the money for. Yeah. Is that legal? That doesn't seem legal. And if it is, and in general, if it is legal to start a company as a nonprofit and then take the IP and transfer it to a for-profit that then makes tons of money, shouldn't everyone start? Shouldn't that be the default? Look.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. It tends to make sense. There are also some definite tax advantages as a nonprofit. So it begs the question, if the IP, all of the expensive stuff, was developed as a nonprofit without having to pay taxes, and then you use all of that IP and become a for-profit organization, somewhere the tax authorities got shortchanged, all right? And they probably would have an issue with this as well.
The IP, the IP of the ChatGPT as it exists now was not created with the $45 million investment in 2015 from Elon. ChatGPT, the first iteration that was released wasn't until 2019, well after Elon had already exited the company. And then the newest iteration, ChatGPT 4 specifically, has been entirely financed, and the compute power is entirely financed and paid for by the users, not by nonprofit donations. So this is just not correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for chiming in. I didn't realize that. So it looks like some of these issues are going to be debated in court or out of court, depending on how far this goes. They also talk about the generative AI model that what became so powerful within OpenAI that it led to the temporary ouster of Sam Altman before being returned 4 days later. This one was dubbed Q, pronounced Q star. And according to the article, this might be the dangerously powerful superintelligence that had OpenAI's chief scientist, Ilya Sutskever, so worried that he sided with the board when they decided to remove Altman. All of the details were never fully released.
Yeah, I was going to say that's speculation. Yeah, we don't know.
This is speculation. You're right. All right. So most of the board is now gone, and Altman is once again firmly in control. Musk's lawsuit contends that this is a recipe for disaster, claiming that the new board lacks the substantial AI expertise and on information and belief are ill-equipped by design to make an independent determination of whether and when OpenAI has returned artificial general intelligence.
Okay, and one thing we do want to make clear too, the reason that Sam Altman is back is because 95% of the employees at OpenAI quit over him leaving and being kicked out. So this is very clearly the article that you're reading from, and a lot of other articles tend to put a very negative slant on all of this stuff, like he was unqualified or the board was scared of him or whatever it was. First of all of that is speculation. We don't know any of that to be true. And secondly, the outstanding just unification of all of his employees to support him leads me to believe that that's actually not true, that he does know what he's doing, he's a great leader, and that he belongs at the helm of that company, not Elon or anyone else.
We have to continue to work on getting Sam Altman to join us on one of these podcasts.
Yeah.
So there's a challenge for you guys. So this article, as Jesse points out, is most likely skewed, but it continues. A key element of the lawsuit is that Musk's belief that any AGI superintelligence development is outside the scope of the Microsoft agreement. And if OpenAI is giving the tech giant access to that technology, it's breaking the rules. The overarching suit goal here is to compel OpenAI to adhere to the founding agreement and return to its mission to develop AGI for the benefit of humanity, not to personally benefit the individual defendants and the largest technology company in the world.
And Pete, right there, one other thing too in that statement, that is true, but the people are misreading that statement from that article, because that is the original stated goal of OpenAI, was to create artificial general intelligence for the benefit of humanity. Full stop. There's nothing in there about being nonprofit. There's nothing in there about how they're going to solve the compute problems. It takes billions of dollars worth of compute and data centers to make all of this work, to make AGI work. None of that is included in the original agreement. All that's included in the original agreement is that they're going to make AGI and then it's going to benefit humanity. Nowhere does it say that it has to be open source and freely available to everybody.
Okay, fair enough. So this article now begins to show its true colors as the next two paragraphs, which I'm going to read you, are discussed. To be fair, they say, Musk is not asking for his millions back. Remember, 44 million is what he said that he dumped into this OpenAI effort. Though the level of compensation is noted to be well above the court's jurisdictional minimum of $35,000. As I see it, though, Musk is just stamping his foot, arguing that OpenAI is no longer playing fair. Here's another article. Or a paragraph. You see, it says, it's not like Musk never uses AI for commercial or for profit purposes. His laughable Grok chatbot, the first product out of his newly formed XAI artificial intelligence company, charges for use. Or more accurately, it also asks you to pay an X subscription fee to get its snarky answers to life's questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing too, is that one that you have to pay the premium fee for only pulls from Twitter. It doesn't have the full access to the internet like ChatGPT does.
Right.
And it's almost 2/3 of the cost still, and it's much more limited.
Okay.
Have you played around with that, Pete?
With Grok?
Oh,
Yeah.
Grok, all the time. When I am extracting anything from AI, scripts, for example, I find that using all three, and I use Bard, I use Grok, I use
Gemini.
ChatGPT-4. Yeah,
Gemini now.
Yeah,
You got to keep up with the
they
names.
keep changing the names, yeah. But what I find is that there is oftentimes a level of ignorance. One doesn't know what the other one knows. So it's important to get as wide a range, just like a large language model would do, which is look at large data subsets. But yeah, I use all three continuously, and you can tell that there's a certain personality in each one. Snarky is a great way to define Grok, and sarcastic, and humorous at times. So it depends on what I'm going for. Like with the rants that I do,
Yeah.
Grok is pretty good because it tends to lean toward the humorous, the sarcastic, the impactful.
But we still rely mostly on ChatGPT, and we use ChatGPT actually to combine all of them together usually.
Yes, yeah, that's another great tool, or another great use for the tool. So they also go on to say, or this is the response now from the OpenAI folks. They said, "We're sad that it's come to this with someone whom we've deeply admired, someone who inspired us to aim higher, and then told us that we would fail, started a competing function, and then sued us when we started making meaningful progress toward OpenAI's mission without him." You had also mentioned that there was an article or a post that took place on X where OpenAI's team actually published a number of emails. Are we? Do we have enough data to talk about that, or are we still collecting information?
Yeah, I can pull up that post. Just give me a minute here.
Sure.
I'll pull up the Twitter post.
And by the way, later on in the podcast, we're going to define ANI, AGI, and also a prediction that was made by Elon that he feels that OpenAI has attained AGI at this point. Looks
Okay,
like we're
so let me pull this up here.
So what we're doing here is we're bringing up Twitter, or as it's now known, X, and a response from the
Okay, so
OpenAI team to
You see that there? Now Elon responded down here saying, "Change your name." That's the little snarky thing I was showing you earlier. So he replied to this post from OpenAI where they're saying, "We're dedicated to the mission, and we're going to share the facts about our relationship with Elon." And they posted the thing, and the authors of this are all of the current board members and engineers, like top engineers of the company.
Mm-hmm.
But in this thing, and anybody can go read this on the OpenAI website or on the X profile, where they actually put out the emails showing all of the information over the years between Elon and the rest of the staff, including Ilya. So basically all this stuff says here is that not only was it always in the plan to pay for the compute power necessary for AGI by going to a for-profit model, but Elon himself personally wanted to be the CEO. He wanted full control, and he wanted to make it a part of Tesla, or somehow tie it to Tesla as the cash cow in order to generate all of this money and make it for profit. And when they decided not to allow him to have complete control, that they said actually in this article that was more against the founding of the company than anything else. So it's not about open sourcing, the technology. It's about not having it all centralized in one person, which is what Elon was requesting. He wanted to be the sole person in power, whereas it's controlled by the board of engineers and everybody else now, the board of directors and the top engineers. So instead of centralizing it all in Elon, they kept it the way that it was, and then Elon left, and then that's when all the tension started. But it's very clear in these emails that Elon, he wanted to just own it, essentially, and take it for profit himself. And when that didn't happen, that's when he went on his whole kind of crusade against OpenAI.
So what we've just revealed is the arguments and the talking points and the basis for this lawsuit, and all of that will be discussed. In its the preliminary analysis for me is that something this large, it would be very difficult to keep this nonprofit because you would have to continuously go out for donations and funding. In business, we have to monetize in order to get return on investment and to handle overhead and the development of more tools, like the Dojo computer, for example. The compute power, all of the hardware that's necessary, the staff, the customer support people.
Well, that's the other thing too. Full self-driving with the Dojo computer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a $12,000 add-on. That's not open source or free.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So it's. I guess what we've done is revealed the arguments and talking points at this point, and we're going to have to wait to see how these things are presented as this lawsuit continues to gain momentum.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. It says here also that they're moving to dismiss all of his claims because they have all of this evidence. So it may not even go to a lawsuit. Right now, it's just been filed, and it's at the very, very, very early stages. We'll see.
We'll see if it makes it through discovery. Okay, here's another portion of an article about AI, and it is a continuation of what we've been talking about. In 2017, Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, warned, he said, according to Elon, Putin says that the nation that leads in AI will be the ruler of the world. And apparently Elon tweeted this. He also tweeted, China, Russia, soon all the countries with strong computer science will be vying for this in competition for AEI superiority at national level, most likely causing World War III, in my opinion. The article continues, it was a warning about the fight for AI dominance, but also a signal that the war was already on. No country can afford to fall behind, and like it or not, OpenAI may give us our best chance to stay ahead. And of course, it's pretty obvious that the military is going to be very interested in artificial intelligence and its applications for defense and for offense type projects. We talked about that in the last podcast, how AI was beginning to infiltrate the military, and how Google at one point in time had a relationship with the Pentagon. And one of the things that was mentioned was there was such an employee uproar over this that Google decided not to renew its contract with the Pentagon, although the Pentagon had received enough information to continue using AI for things like drone identification, target identification, with a caveat that there will always be humans involved before the button is pushed. For now, anyway, would be my guess on this. So then they talk about Musk is right, though. OpenAI is trying to have it both ways, retain the altruistic sheen of a nonprofit in one hand while still collecting the receipts with the other. And then they go on to speculate perhaps it would make more sense for OpenAI to drop the ruse and simply become what it mostly is anyway, a for-profit company. All right. We've got a comment here from John Smith. Thank you for joining us, John. Sorry it took so long to get to you. He says, I'm sure Microsoft had a lot to do with them walking the line between nonprofit and profit. Oh, without a doubt. You know, Microsoft is no longer run by Bill Gates. He is functionally retired, but it is a for-profit organization, very much focused on continuing to keep the machinery humming and running. And with as hefty as investment as they allegedly made in OpenAI, they're looking for that magic return on investment. All right.
MP, just so we clarify, back in 2017 is when Putin said that. So this is way before OpenAI even had a product. This is way before AI was in the public eye the way it is now. He's quoted as saying, whoever wins AI wins the world.
It was a timely prediction and insightful if you think about it, because you're right. In 2017, were we thinking about AI? It was something on the horizon that was bantied about, but certainly not anything that was tangible yet.
Not anywhere near what it is now. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I have an interesting quote to throw in here. It's not directly AI related, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bertrand Russell is an atheist, well-known atheist. He was once asked what he would say if when he died, he came face to face with God. And Russell replied, I would say, sir, why did you not give me better evidence? All right. Moving along here. I got a picture to throw up here. Let's throw up learning. And this one kind of summarizes where the current trend is heading. And the title on this one is, Humans are hooked, machines are learning. we're going to get our technology in the studio at one point to where I will have a button here on the table, and when we have an image, the presenters here, we're going to be able to just push that button and throw it up. For now, it's a cumbersome thing. We have to have the studio people behind the scenes throw these up. So there you have it. The machines are learning, and we are preoccupied.
Same as OpenAI, Pete. We need funding to increase our studio.
Yeah, there you go. The never-ending quest for funding.
It's a for-profit studio.
Well, if we could just make that a reality and create funding that the studio actually generates return on investment.
That's why it's called an investment, Pete.
Okay, all right, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. The other one that I famously have heard for 40 years. Pete, don't you realize you have to spend money to make money?
To make money, yeah, exactly.
That's the other favorite one, when somebody has their hand out for some more budget money.
When I was young and was inspired to become a professional bass fisherman, he told me, he goes, "You want to know how you make $1 million bass fishing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how do you make it?" He's like, "You start with 2 million."
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Wow.
Totally. All right, got some Sam Altman quotes, and then we'll move into some other cool AI topics. And of course, he is the current CEO of OpenAI again. Randolph Schnack just chimed in. He says, "I agree, drop the ruse." There you go. Yep. So Sam says, "What I lose the most sleep over is the hypothetical idea that we already have done something really bad by launching ChatGPT." Another Sam Altman quote. "One of the most powerful lessons to learn is that you can figure out what to do in situations that seem to have no solution." And another one, "If you are successful, it's almost always because some people went out of their way to help you. You have a moral obligation to pay it forward." There you go. Then he says, "Generally, the highest return on investment comes from getting even better in areas where you're already strong, not improving in areas where you're weak." A businessman would simply say, "No, I hire the skills that we need if there's a weakness." And, I know that well. When I started 40 years ago, I'm not an accounting guy. I don't like, poring over books and moving numbers around and all that. And one of the first things we did was we hired an MBA to legitimize all the financials in the company. And it was way more than we could bite off at the time. In fact, we got our CFO from the American Graduate School of International Management, which is a well-respected graduate school here in Glendale, Arizona, not too far from here. It was at a job fair. And people thought we were crazy going there to find an MBA to handle our banking relationships and get our financials straight. But it was one of the smartest things we did, and Stephen Korf was with us for many years. Thoroughly enjoyed working with him. All right, so here's another one. He says, "Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, the internet itself, the iPhone, and on and on and on. Most people dismiss these things as incremental or trivial when they first came out." All right, Up in My Panda Tree has just joined us. He says, "Hi, guys. Can you put a rolling magnet that's used to clean up nails in the back of a Tesla, or will this powerful magnet mess with the car's battery?" No, actually not at all. The sensitivity to magnetic fields is actually very low for any kind of EV. The three-phase induction drive motor, for example, is pretty well shielded. And the batteries are will not respond to any kind of magnetic fields. So you could put a rolling magnet to clean up nails in your trunk if you buy one at Home Depot without any risk.
Why do you have a bunch of nails in your Tesla?
Well, it's a tool that is used on construction sites to pick up all the loose hardware that's been dropped by the construction workers. Drywall screws, for example. You'll get flat tires constantly unless you roll the ground and pick up the nails and the screws.
So the magnet is like attached to the vehicle, and so it picks up the nail before it hits your tire?
What he's talking about is, picture a push broom, and a large magnet on that push broom.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
that rolls across the ground, picking up anything ferrous or magnetic, which is typically the stuff that's going to give you flat tires.
Yeah, I think he's just saying, can I keep it in my Tesla, or would it cause problems?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, let's throw up a picture, guys. What is generative AI? And it is the AGI picture. So the four levels that they talk about here is ChatGPT. It is an OpenAI service that incorporates conventional chatbot with large language models to create content. It's a fairly simple form of AI. Then you have large language models, LLMs. This is AI that is trained on vast amounts of text to interpret and generate human-like textual output. Then you have foundation models. These are large machine learning models that are trained on a broad set of unlabeled data and are fine-tuned to a wide range of applications. So this is now where you start beginning to use AI in certain fields like medical, for example. And then finally, you have generative AI, which is an AI technique that learns from data about existing artifacts and uses this to generate new artifacts. So in other words, it's going to create more than what you gave it. We're getting far more powerful here now. On the next image that we can throw up is the evolution of AI. Come up here in a second. This almost reminds me of Maslow's triangle with the various stages. So we have the stage one, which is ANI. And stage two, if you notice, is where they predict that current technology is. With the final one being machine consciousness, sentience, and that is going to be a game changer for sure. But let's define each of these. The artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI, is also referred to as weak AI. This type of AI is one that focuses primarily on one single narrow task with a limited range of abilities. Think of Alexa in your home. You know, Alexa, what's the question of the day? All right, it's fairly narrow. What's the temperature outside? It's going to go and collect some data for you. And if you think, they say, of an example of AI that exists in our lives right now, it is ANI. This is the only type out of the three that is currently around, and this includes all kinds of natural language, or like Siri or Alexa. Then we have machine intelligence, AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is where they feel that AI is currently has attained this level. Well, AGI technology would be on the level of the human mind. Due to this fact, it will probably be some time before we truly grasp AGI, because we still don't know all there is to know about the human brain itself. However, in concept at least, AGI would be able to think on the same level as a human, much like Sonny, the robot in iRobot, which featured Will Smith. It was a good movie. Now we get to artificial superintelligence. And as they say, this is where it gets a little theoretical and a touch scary. ASI, or artificial superintelligence, refers to technology that will match and then surpass the human mind. To be classed as an ASI, the technology would have to be more capable than a human in every single way possible. Not only could these AI things carry out tasks, but they would even be capable of having emotions and relationships. All right, now you bury that in a robot, and suddenly you have a new race, right? All right. Now here's something. This is an article from Edgecraft. And if we can throw up that video, Jesse, this is the one where we take a still image, and AI actually reads the image and then begins to make a video out of it, animating it, making it talk to us.
So that's the second one
just below Elon's.
with the Mona Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on.
And what they say here is, in a few months, well, let's look at the video first. All right, the image on the left is a still image. This could be Mona Lisa even.
We were good, we were gold. Can the dream that can be so? We were right.
Make it copyright for that. So
Okay. Can we do a portion of this one before copyright?
Night. He goes off crazier than usual.
yeah, we're those are copyrighted movies. We can't use that.
Okay, all right, never mind then, but you get the general idea. Everything on the right is AI manipulated, generated, and modified from that still image on the left. Now, if you're thinking about possible applications for this, it's probably going to be a lot of rabbit holes you can go down. Take a look at your family pictures, for example, your relatives 100 years ago when photography was in its infancy or more, and animating those and revealing what those personalities might have been like that you never met, for example. Well, this article goes on to say that in a few months now, not years, decades, we won't be able to distinguish AI from reality. Research at Alibaba's Institute for Intelligent Computing have developed an AI system called EMO, E-M-O, Emote Portrait Alive, or just EMO. Why doesn't that acronym match the description? But anyway, I just a question I typically have when that happens. So they say, what is it? All right, EMO is an AI system that is able to create video clips of any length out of static images. What makes EMO so impressive is the vivid facial expressions, the head movements that it can produce. This represents a major advance in audio-driven talking head video generation. The possibilities and ethical considerations now. Well, the possibilities are, of course, endless or vast, as well as the dangers that lurk, as they say. There continue to be moral apprehensions regarding the possible exploitation of this technology to mimic individuals without approval or disseminate false information. My poor geriatric neighbor years ago that got a call from a scammer, and it wasn't visual, but the voice and the name that the scammer used was this my neighbor's grandson. And it was believable enough to where she was ready to have my wife drive her down to Western Union, take $4,000 out, and wire it to her grandson's attorney who was trying to get him out of jail. Anyway, so yes, there is a risk for misuse. But the technology continues to improve. Last week, we talked about Sora. Sora, of course, is the ability to generate video, short ones right now, from a prompt. And just like we do with ChatGPT-4, you give it a descriptive enough prompt, you feed into AI what you're looking for, and it will generate excellent renditions of what it is you need, like that image behind me there, for example. Okay, Stephen Colbert, who runs the Late Show, which I don't watch because I'm not up at that time. But he said that he is ready for AI to be in charge. Now that's echoing something that I've been saying for ever since we started these AI podcasts. And my reason for that, folks, is mankind has had thousands of years to get their act together on this planet. And we continue to fail, and we continue to fail in the same way. Even in this century, which I thought all of the lessons learned in the last century might be applied in this century, and we're no longer going to kill each other and kill innocent people, women, children, grandmothers and grandfathers. We're still doing it for the same stupid reasons that we've been doing for thousands of years. Money, land, power, ego. I mean, it goes on and on. The list goes on and on. So, and it turns out Stephen Colbert was interviewing Yuval Noah Harari, who is a historian and author, and they were talking about AI. And in this latest conversation about the effects of AI on our society and what it means for the future, and the categories were the era of rapid technological change. Colbert observed that the current generation seems to be undergoing a faster change in their technological surroundings than ever before, a sentiment that Harari confirmed. But Harari now asserts that unlike the past where there was a predictability, today it is unclear what skills to teach the young that will remain relevant in the future. Remember in the earlier portion of this podcast, we talked about how troubling it was to educators now attempting to integrate or avoid artificial intelligence in the educational system. And will it be relevant? Will the methods of educating be relevant as augmentation occurs and we no longer need to write essays, for example? So the question becomes, how do we then exercise the mind, which is really what education is about? Then they talked about AI and its influence on learning. Colbert questions whether there is a necessity to teach young people anything now that AI is here. And Harari responds by saying that individuals need to learn how to deal with AI. And then, of course, the eventual impact of this massive amount of augmentation that's available needs to be discussed. People used to memorize phone numbers, for example. There's no need to do that anymore. I have a couple thousand in my cell phone. I can't remember them all, first of all. And whenever I need one, I just simply use a voice command and, dial this person. And of course, that's only going to continue to increase our dependence on this level of augmentation. So the question is, will young people need to learn anything? And if they don't learn anything and become heavily reliant on these devices, what does that do to their critical thinking skills, their general intelligence? Is it going to be like the movie, Idiocracy, where people just sit there in a lounge chair playing video games, inarticulate, unaware of what's going on around them?
So we have to think about this for a second. Excuse me. So, how do we define intelligence? Is it I think there's a misconception about intelligence. So people think that when you go to school like college, you get a degree, that makes you intelligent. That's not intelligence. That's just learning things. That's just storing things in your mind, right?
Good point. Yeah.
How you process things is your intelligence, in my opinion. So
when I was in school, and I just want to interject something at this point, the most successful students were the ones that had the best memorization skills. It wasn't the ones that knew how to solve problems. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the ones that had social skills. It was the kids that had the most memorization skills. So I'm with you on this track that you're going.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing. It doesn't matter if you go to school or not. Your intelligence level doesn't change. How much knowledge you have stored in your brain changes. Right. Well, that doesn't matter anymore when you have an augmentation that gives you access to all of the knowledge that you would learn anyway. Right? So if you have the internet in your head and you can access it whenever you want, your intelligence is what is used to then process that, right? So I just don't see how our intelligence is going to decrease. I think the processing power will remain the same, especially when you have the internet in your head. You're going to have to be processing a lot more information more frequently. Now, whether it's just because it's about video games doesn't mean that you're not processing and using your processor in your mind, right? So there are video games that have incredible stories and they have game mechanics, and in order to be successful and be one of the top people or even enjoy the game, you have to know this entire other world that's been built by the game developers. It's
Sure.
not as mindless as people would think in terms of the processing power required to play it.
All right. Let me go a different direction, and this is going to be a pretty big rabbit hole here, too. Generally, people with a strong vocabulary or that are more articulate than the average person are considered more intelligent. Would you agree with that?
A larger vocabulary?
Mhm.
I think that's, again, just a misconception. They know more words,
Yes.
but you can use a much simpler word to describe the same thing that they may have 5 different words for. That doesn't make them more intelligent. That means they know more words than you do.
Okay.
That's not a measure of intelligence, in my opinion.
I agree with that. So the ability to articulate concepts is also a form of intelligence, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So let's get back to the basics here. We are used to making guttural sounds to communicate. At least at this level. We can write as well, you know. Eventually that's going to go away. It's highly inefficient. Think of the inefficiencies of me having to move my vocal cords around and the structure of my larynx to make certain sounds and certain words. You run into that problem when you go to a different language where they use different types of sounds that you aren't familiar with, like the German language with their type sounds, right? Or the clicking sounds in South Africa that we talked about. It's extraordinarily inefficient, and it's much slower than the brain is able to process. So eventually, when we get to direct neural communication, this is going to go away, all of these guttural sounds. Now, again, we get back to what is intelligence then once we reach that level? Well, if we're being fed things from an augmentation source like artificial intelligence, which knows everything, then the question of are you intelligent or not is no longer relevant because we have access to infinite intelligence.
Yeah. That's the thing. And emotions won't be a thing. The way that you're speaking right now, or I'm speaking in we're emoting, none of that is going to be there at all. It'll just be instantaneous, which will actually be a lot less processing power and compute power required when it's just an on or an off or a yes or a no, as opposed to getting your voice perfectly modulated through the microphone and transmitted to my headphones.
And the inefficiencies caused by emotions, I'm glad you mentioned that, are part of the problem. It's part of the reason that mankind has been stifled for thousands of years. With this level of augmentation, we're going to have the ability for people to have resident therapists in their head, basically, redefining the stimulus. So it may happen that I become angry at you because of something that you said, and the voice inside my head says, no, he really didn't mean that. And it negates the emotion, the negative emotion that comes along with it.
Well, there wouldn't be a mean anymore. People wouldn't mean things when they speak. There wouldn't be a certain way of speaking. There would just be factual data transfers. I mean, it's actually kind of probably scary for a lot of people to go to that kind of a dystopian, no emotion, no feeling, no anything. But I mean, that's how you would eliminate things like anger, jealousy, fear, war.
Yeah.
All that.
Let's go into the other levels of emotion then. I mean, there's the dystopian version, then there's a utopian version. We love, for example. You have a crush, right? You have a heartthrob, those types of things.
Taylor Swift.
He summed it up perfectly, yes.
Yeah.
But so I think it's interesting that that these people are beginning to talk about this sort of thing and how to deal with AI's integration into the way that we communicate. The final thing that they talk about here in this talk show where Harari and Colbert were theorizing the potential authority of AI. Colbert expresses a lack of concern about the influence of AI, even stating his readiness to allow machines to make major decisions for humans. Again, whenever I hear that, I'm all for that. You've heard me say this a number of times. I can't wait until artificial intelligence has infiltrated the entire planetary infrastructure and is able to neutralize weapons of mass destruction. What value do any of this type of product on this planet have other than a defensive maneuvering based in fear? Well,
Yeah. Well, in order to get to that point, that's another thing that is going to terrify a lot of people, because we'd have to eliminate countries. We'd have to dissolve borders. We'd have to get to a one world government, one world unified species, instead of Americans and Europeans or Americans and Russians and Chinese and North Koreans
get
or
rid
whatever.
of the borders. Yes.
There'd just be humans.
Humanity, humankind.
Yeah. In order to get to that, though, people are going to see that as the New World Order, the Illuminati, the one world government, the centralized power at the top running everything. People are extremely fearful of that.
A lot of paranoia about that, yes.
Yeah. Well,
and you go into the religious realm, and much of this, according to the religious groups, is prophesied that this was going to happen.
The strange thing about that, too, though, is that especially in Christianity and other monotheistic religions, their whole entire belief is based on this one ultimate authority, this one new world order, this one controlling being that you don't ever question it. You don't ever, go out of its rules or laws. You can only abide by it. You exist to praise it. They're perfectly fine to do that with this imaginary entity in the sky, but they can't envision a world here where it actually happens with humanity for the benefit of humanity.
And of course, each religion has that very thing that you just described, which is part of the problem. Because one's right, one's wrong. One's good, one's bad. All right, so continuing here, I agree with Colbert that I can't wait until AI begins to manage this planet properly. And the analogy that I've used is the parents went away on vacation. They let the kids run the house, and the kids have destroyed the house and over-partied it. And now the parents came back, and AI, as an overlord, could take over and straighten some things out. Harari, however, counters this by emphasizing that giving power to something humans do not understand is perilous. He further explains that unlike previously transformative technologies, AI is not an extension of us, as it can make independent decisions and can generate new ideas. Well, I'm hoping that's the case. All right, Clippo joining us on X. Thank you, Twitter, X. He says, hello. How are you doing? Randolph Schnack says, it is interesting that with biologics, it starts with emotion, then learning, then intelligence. With computers, it's the opposite order. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. I never thought of that. Thank you, Randolph. That is an astute observation. All right, here's some advances in medicine. This article says, one promise of AI in medicine is that it can spot less obvious links that humans can't always see. Could AI help us uncover conditions linked to Alzheimer's that have so far been overlooked? To find out, Marina Sirota and her team at the University of California, San Francisco, ran a machine learning program on a database of anonymous electronic health records from patients. The AI algorithm was trained to pull out any common features shared by people who were ultimately diagnosed with Alzheimer's over a period of 7 years. The database included clinical data such as lab and imaging test results and diagnoses of medical conditions. She says, there were some things we saw that were expected, given the knowledge that we have about Alzheimer's. But some things we found were novel and interesting. And these results, by the way, were published in Nature Aging, if you're interested in pursuing this. What they found was that heart disease, high cholesterol, and inflammatory conditions all emerged as Alzheimer's risk factors. Not surprising. They were expecting that, since they are known to contribute to the buildup of protein plaques in the brain. But the less expected conditions included osteoporosis in women, and depression in both men and women. The researchers also saw unexpected patterns emerge closer to when people were diagnosed, such as having lower levels of vitamin D. I am so pleased that AI is beginning to reveal things that medical science has not yet discovered. And with this article, this last paragraph, is it possible that Alzheimer's is nothing more than a vitamin deficiency, some more vitamin D? I think it's going to be breakthroughs like this that are going to continue to put AI on the map and make us feel a bit more comfortable about the integration of AI. All right, let's see if there's anything else in this session that made sense to me to share with you. I'm going through my list of talking points.
Did you already talk about the fusion stuff?
Fusion, we did not. Yes, going back to that. Thank you. All right. There's so much each week that crops up that makes it difficult to prioritize.
It's every day with AI. Yeah, there's new stuff coming out every single day. It's crazy.
Yep. All right. The fusion, of course, is something that the world is definitely interested in. It is the ability to harness a continuous energy source. There we go. We've got the fusion article. All right. So they say scientists have used AI to overcome a huge challenge for producing near limitless clean energy with nuclear fusion. In a nutshell, fusion is what's on the sun and the stars. And the reason that it's contained in a round globe like the sun is because of an intense magnetic field or gravity. The problem with fusion on this planet is the ability to contain the plasma. So, a team from Princeton University in the US have figured out a way to use an AI model to predict and prevent instabilities with plasma during a fusion reaction, controlling it, in other words. Nuclear fusion has been hailed the holy grail of clean energy for its potential to produce vast amounts of energy without requiring any fossil fuels or leaving behind any hazardous waste. One of the biggest breakthroughs that occurred toward the end of last year was a tiny fusion reactor that actually, for the first time in the history of mankind that we know of, demonstrated that what you put in, what you get out, is actually more than what you put in. Perpetual motion is another term for that. And of course, now we need to scale that. They say that the process mimics the same natural reactions that occur within the sun. However, harnessing nuclear fusion energy has proved immensely difficult or impossible until just now. In 2022, not last year, 2022, a team from Lawrence Livermore National Labs in California achieved the first ever net energy gain with nuclear fusion, meaning they were able to produce more energy than was input for the reaction. Now, it was only a small amount, they say, roughly enough to boil a kettle. Well, that's still pretty substantial if you think about it. It's never been done before, but it represented a major milestone. The latest success that they've made means that another significant obstacle has been passed with AI capable of recognizing plasma instabilities 300 milliseconds before it happens. Enough time to make a modification and keep the plasma under control. By learning from past experiments, they say, rather than incorporating information from physics-based models, which is what's been used for many decades, AI was able to develop a final control policy that supported a stable, high-powered plasma regime in real time at a real reactor. And this is according to a researcher called Edmund Coleman, who works as a physicist at the Princeton Plasma Physics Lab. So the latest research, if you're interested, was published in the scientific journal Nature, and under a heading entitled Avoiding Fusion Plasma, Tearing Instability with Deep Reinforcement Learning. So by being able to predict instabilities ahead of time, it can make it much easier to run these reactions than current approaches. So AI is helping. And who knows, we may begin to see fusion reactors rather than fission reactors, which generate a lot of hazardous waste. All right, you know what? We are running over an hour. We should probably close at this point. I've got a few more items, but nothing earth-shattering, earth-shaking. Again, we enjoy everybody joining us. We hope you're enjoying the rabbit holes we go down. And if you have any ideas for topics, ev@gruber.com is where to email them. I'm Pete Gruber, and thanks for joining us.